Have you ever wondered why some people seem to achieve the impossible while others barely scratch the surface of their potential? The truth is, everything begins with belief. If you believe that anything is possible, you tear down the invisible walls that hold you back. But why must you believe at this level? Because without unwavering belief, every plan, every effort collapses under pressure. How do you begin? Start by questioning every limitation you've ever accepted and replacing it with a bold, relentless vision. Believe and the impossible becomes your new reality. In just a few moments, you will discover how to believe as if no limit can stop you from achieving greatness. The power of inner vision. You often hear people talk about believing in yourself, but have you ever truly seen your future in your mind's eye? If you cannot see it internally, you cannot hold it externally. Many people drift through life reacting instead of creating. But when you build an inner vision so vivid it becomes more real than your current reality, you ignite the invisible forces of success. Vision precedes creation. Throughout history, every great achievement first existed as a mental picture in someone's mind. The Eiffel Tower, the first heart transplant, telephone, all began as nothing more than an image someone refused to let go of. What separates those who accomplish extraordinary things isn't just talent or opportunity, but their ability to see what doesn't yet exist with such clarity that its manifestation becomes inevitable. How do you develop this inner vision? Begin by closing your eyes each morning and building your dream life in your imagination. The house, the work, the relationships, the health. See it in sharp color, feel it, taste it. As you walk through your imagined home, notice the textures. Feel the satisfaction of meaningful work accomplished. Experience the warmth of deep connections with others. Sense the vitality coursing through your body. But don't stop there. Live from it, not toward it. When you make decisions, ask yourself, what would the version of me who already has this vision choose? This shifts you from hoping and wishing to embodying and becoming. The gap between your current reality and your vision begins to close, not through force, but through alignment. Consider what happens in your brain during this practice. Neurologically, your mind doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. Both activate similar neural pathways. By repeatedly visualizing your desired future, you're actually creating a neural blueprint that your brain begins to recognize as familiar territory. Henry Ford. Before he built a car, he saw a world where every man and woman could own one. In an age when automobiles were luxury items for the wealthy few, Ford's vision seemed preposterous. Yet he lived so completely within that vision that he revolutionized manufacturing to make it possible. His competitors weren't just outpaced industrially, they were outmatched imaginatively. Your inner vision acts as a filter for opportunity. When you hold a clear picture of what you're creating, you naturally notice resources, connections, and possibilities that support it. Things that were always there but previously invisible to you. This isn't mystical thinking, it's how your reticular activating system works. Focusing your attention on what aligns with your dominant thoughts. What inner vision are you nurturing today? Is it sharp and detailed, or vague and tentative? Is it truly yours or a collection of others' expectations? Most importantly, are you treating it like a fantasy to occasionally daydream about, or as a reality you're already stepping into? What could happen if you treated it like a fact, not a fantasy? If you spoke about it with certainty instead of hope? If you made decisions based not on your current circumstances, but on the person you're becoming? This is the difference between wishful thinking and transformative vision. One waits for reality to change, while the other changes reality through unwavering internal conviction. Your future is first created within, before it ever manifests without. See it clearly, hold it firmly, live from it now. Faith is a decision, not a feeling. Most people wait for faith to strike them like a lightning bolt from the heavens, but true belief doesn't come by chance. It comes by decision. You must choose to believe in yourself, your goals, and your worth before any proof appears. Why? Because every great breakthrough was born in a moment of unseen faith. You don't wait to believe after success. You believe before success. Faith is the bridge between your current reality and your desired future. It's the ability to stand firmly on what appears to be nothing and feel solid ground beneath your feet. This isn't blind optimism or wishful thinking. It's a deliberate stance of certainty in the face of uncertainty. The most successful individuals throughout history weren't necessarily the most talented or fortunate. They were those who decided to believe when doubt seemed the only rational response. How do you cultivate this kind of unwavering faith? Each morning, speak to yourself words of faith. I am capable. I am growing. I am destined for greatness. These aren't empty affirmations, but declarations that reshape your internal landscape. When you consistently affirm what you're becoming, rather than what you currently see, you begin to operate from a different level of identity. Your actions naturally align with this new self-pitch. Build faith the way a mason lays brick, one strong thought at a time. Just as a skilled craftsman doesn't question whether each brick will hold, don't question whether each faithful thought is working. Trust the process. Understand that doubt will come, but it doesn't need to stay. Acknowledge it, then deliberately replace it with your chosen belief. This mental discipline becomes stronger with practice, like any muscle. Consider the psychology behind decision-based faith. When you consciously choose belief over doubt, you activate what psychologists call the self-fulfilling prophecy. Your expectations influence your behaviors in subtle ways that tend to produce the very outcomes you anticipate. By deciding to believe in your capacity for success, you unconsciously adopt the postures, habits, and perspectives that make success more likely. Thomas Edison. He chose to believe in the electric light despite 1,000 failures. Each unsuccessful attempt could have been reasonable evidence to abandon his vision. Yet Edison famously saw these not as failures, but as successfully finding ways that wouldn't work. His faith wasn't in each specific experiment, but in the ultimate outcome. And this unwavering belief sustained him through countless disappointments. But what about you? Will you wait for perfect circumstances, or will you build your belief right now, today? The waiting approach assumes faith is reactive, something that responds to favorable conditions. But transformative faith is proactive. It creates favorable conditions through its very existence. It doesn't need external validation because it stands on the conviction that what is unseen is often more powerful than what is seen. Remember that faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the choice to believe despite it. Even the most accomplished individuals experience moments of uncertainty. The difference is they've trained themselves to treat faith as a decision rather than a feeling. When emotions fluctuate, their commitment to belief remains steady. Make this decision daily. Be deliberate about the thoughts you entertain. Guard your faith like the precious resource it is. And watch as your decided belief begins to reshape not just your inner world, but your outer circumstances as well. Faith isn't just about what might happen tomorrow. It's about who you choose to be today. Break free from the chains of doubt. Doubt is the silent thief that robs you of your dreams before you even begin. It's easy to listen to the voice inside that says you're not good enough, you're too late, you're too ordinary, but that voice is a liar. Doubt thrives in darkness. It cannot survive in the light of decisive action. So how do you break free? Act, even if you're scared. Speak, even if your voice shakes. Move, even if your feet tremble. Consider the anatomy of doubt. It begins as a whisper, a subtle questioning of your abilities or worth. Left unchallenged, it grows into a roaring voice that drowns out possibility. What makes doubt so dangerous isn't its existence. Everyone experiences it, but its deceptive nature. It presents itself as wisdom, as rational caution, as self-protection. Yet beneath this disguise lies its true purpose, to keep you small, to maintain the status quo, to prevent you from discovering what you're truly capable of. The most successful people aren't those who never doubt, they're those who act despite their doubts. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. When you take action in the face of uncertainty, something remarkable happens. The very act of moving forward creates evidence that contradicts your doubts. Each small victory becomes proof that the limiting voice was wrong. How do you dismantle doubt's power? First, recognize it for what it is, not a reflection of reality, but a protection mechanism from your primitive brain. Your mind is designed to keep you safe, not to make you exceptional. When you understand this, you can acknowledge doubt without being ruled by it. Thank you for trying to protect me, you might say to that inner voice, but I choose growth over comfort. Second, surround yourself with evidence that contradicts your doubts. Study those who've overcome similar obstacles. Document your own past successes, no matter how small. Create a physical reminder, a journal, a vision board, a simple note that you can turn to when doubt grows loud. External proof can silence internal criticism. Kate Smith didn't become a millionaire singer by waiting until she felt ready. She stepped out, partnered with Ted Collins, and built a future most only dreamed of. Smith faced the same doubts that plague every performer. The fear of rejection, the uncertainty of success, the voice that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" But she understood something crucial. You don't overcome doubt by thinking about it. You overcome it by acting in spite of it. Each time she stepped onto a stage, each time she recorded a song, she was making a declaration. My purpose is greater than my fear. This commitment to action, not some magical absence of doubt, was the foundation of her remarkable career. The same principle applies to your life, whatever your aspirations may be. But if you continue entertaining doubt, where will you be 5 years from now? This is not a question of mere curiosity, but of urgent importance. Doubt compounds like interest, growing stronger with each surrendered opportunity. The small voice that whispers, "Not today," eventually becomes the loud regret that cries, "If only I had." Are you willing to let fear sit at the head of your table? To give it the power to make your decisions, to determine your boundaries, to define your potential? Or will you demote it to a mere observer? Acknowledged, but not obeyed? The choice is yours, but the consequences of that choice will echo through every dimension of your life. Breaking free from doubt doesn't happen in a single dramatic moment. It's a daily practice, a muscle strengthened through consistent use. Start with small acts of courage. Celebrate each victory. Forgive yourself when fear wins a battle. Remember that the war against doubt isn't won through perfection, but through persistence, the unwavering commitment to rise again after each retreat. Your doubts are not prophecies, but questions waiting to be answered. Answer them with action. Answer them with courage. Answer them by becoming the person those doubts said you could never be. Master the art of goal setting. Setting goals isn't just about writing lists. It's about crafting the architecture of your destiny. Without goals, you are like a ship sailing without a map, tossed by every wind and wave. But with clear burning goals, you become a navigator, a captain of your fate. Why is it so crucial? Because a mind without a goal becomes a playground for fear and distraction. Set goals with precision. What do you want? By when? Why? How will you feel achieving it? The most profound truth about goal setting is often overlooked. Goals transform not just your circumstances, but your identity. When you define what you're pursuing with clarity, you simultaneously define who you must become to achieve it. This transformation begins the moment you commit your ambitions to paper, not when you reach the destination, but when you chart the course. Consider how your brain responds to clearly defined objectives. Neurologically, the act of setting specific goals activates your reticular activating system, the filter that determines what information from your environment deserves your attention. A vague intention like "improve my finances" gives your brain nothing concrete to filter for, but "increase my income by 30% within 18 months by developing 3 new client acquisition channels" programs your mind to notice relevant opportunities that might otherwise pass unnoticed. How do you set goals with the power to reshape reality? Begin with desire, unfiltered by doubt. Ask yourself what you would pursue if success were guaranteed. Then apply structure to that desire. Define your objectives using the specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But don't stop there. Infuse emotional energy into these structured goals by connecting them to your deepest values and most cherished visions of the future. Write your goals in present tense as though already accomplished. I am earning $10,000 0 cents monthly through my business. Creates different neural pathways than "I will try to make more money online." The former statement instructs your subconscious to align your perceptions and behaviors with this reality. The latter merely expresses a hope, without commitment. Ford didn't aim to make something. He aimed to put the world on wheels. Specificity creates momentum. When Ford declared his vision to produce an automobile that everyday people could afford, he was ridiculed. Automobiles were luxury items for the wealthy elite, but Ford's goal wasn't just clear, it was revolutionary. It demanded innovation not just in product design, but in manufacturing processes. His vision was so specific, it required the invention of the assembly line to fulfill it. This level of clarity eliminated all options except breakthrough. Most goals fail, not from lack of desire, but from lack of clarity. Vague aspirations produce vague results. When you define success with precision, you simultaneously identify what you must say no to. Every meaningful goal requires sacrifice, the elimination of alternatives incompatible with your chosen direction. This focusing power is what transforms dreams from abstract possibilities into concrete achievement. So what about you? Have you written down your dreams as contracts with yourself, or are they still drifting in your mind like clouds? Unwritten goals remain wishes, pleasant but powerless. When committed to paper, reviewed regularly, and pursued with disciplined action, they become forces that bend reality to their specifications. They become the blueprints from which you build the architecture of your life. The act of writing crystallizes thought. It forces clarity where ambiguity once resided. It creates accountability where there was only intention. Most importantly, it externalizes your commitment, making it harder to abandon when obstacles arise, as they inevitably will. Begin today. Take 30 minutes of uninterrupted time. Write down what you truly want in each vital area of your life: career, relationships, health, finance, personal growth, contribution. Be specific, be bold. Then develop the first 3 actions for each goal. Schedule these actions in your calendar as non-negotiable appointments with your future self. Remember, your goals are not separate from you. They are extensions of your deepest identity, waiting to be realized through focused intention and consistent action. Your resilience determines your altitude. Adversity is not a sign to stop. It's a test to see if you are worthy of the next level. The path to greatness isn't paved in gold, it's forged in fire. Every setback, every betrayal, every delay you face isn't there to destroy you, but to refine you. How do you build resilience? By refusing to see failure as permanent. Treat obstacles as part of the process, not the end of it. The most profound truth about achievement is rarely discussed. Your capacity to withstand difficulty is a more reliable predictor of success than talent, education, or connections. Look around at the most accomplished individuals in any field. What unites them isn't privileged beginnings or extraordinary gifts, but an uncommon relationship with adversity. They don't merely endure challenges, they extract wisdom, strength, and opportunity from them. Resilience isn't a trait you're born with. It's a skill you develop through deliberate practice. Like a muscle that grows stronger under resistance, your capacity to bounce back increases each time you refuse to surrender to difficulty. The brain actually creates new neural pathways when confronted with obstacles, but only if you persist through them rather than avoid them. This neuroplasticity is the biological foundation of resilience. Your mind literally rewires itself to better handle future challenges. How do you cultivate this transformative quality? Begin by reframing your relationship with failure. Stop seeing setbacks as evidence of your inadequacy and start recognizing them as necessary steps in your evolution. Every mistake teaches you what doesn't work. Every rejection refines your approach. This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. Develop what psychologists call an internal locus of control. The belief that while you can't control circumstances, you always control your response to them. This shift in mindset transforms you from victim to creator, from passenger to driver. When adversity strikes, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead ask, "What is this teaching me? How can I use this?" Abraham Lincoln lost multiple elections before becoming president. He didn't stop. He hardened his spirit with every defeat. Before reaching the White House, Lincoln endured business failure, the death of his sweetheart, a nervous breakdown, and defeats in 8 different elections. What's remarkable isn't just that he persisted, but how he metabolized these setbacks into wisdom. Each defeat taught him how to better connect with voters, refine his message, and build stronger coalitions, lessons that proved invaluable when he finally assumed the presidency during America's greatest crisis. The quality of your life isn't determined by whether you face adversity, everyone does, but by how you interpret and respond to it. Research in post-traumatic growth shows that individuals who find meaning in their suffering often emerge stronger, more compassionate, and more purposeful than before. They don't just return to their previous state, they transcend it. Are you treating adversity as a wall or as a hammer shaping your masterpiece? This question reveals everything about where your life is headed. When obstacles appear, do you immediately look for exits, or do you lean in with curiosity? Do you blame external circumstances, or do you assume responsibility for finding solutions? Do you tell stories of victimhood or narratives of growth? Remember that resilience isn't about being invulnerable, it's about recovering quickly. It's normal to feel disappointment, frustration, even despair when facing serious setbacks. The resilient person doesn't deny these emotions, but refuses to let them dictate their actions. They acknowledge the pain, extract the lesson, then redirect their energy toward the next step forward. Your capacity for resilience will determine the height of your achievements, the depth of your relationships, and the breadth of your impact. It will dictate not just whether you reach your goals, but who you become in the process. Every challenge you face today is preparing you for a level of success you cannot yet imagine if you have the wisdom to embrace it rather than escape it. The secret weapon, persistence. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack persistence. Talent gives you a head start, but persistence gets you across the finish line. Why is persistence a secret weapon? Because the world eventually makes way for the one who refuses to be denied. How do you develop it? Start small. Show up when it's hard. Finish when you want to quit. Try one more time when no feels final. The landscape of achievement is littered with the remains of brilliant projects abandoned too soon. History doesn't remember the most gifted. It remembers the most persistent. Consider the genius who starts 100 ventures but completes none versus the determined individual of average ability who pursues one goal with unwavering focus. The latter inevitably outperforms the former, not because of superior capability, but because of superior commitment. Persistence operates on principles that transcend mere effort. It creates a compound effect where each act of continuing despite resistance builds not just progress, but momentum. Like water wearing away stone, persistent action may seem to have little effect in any single moment, but over time it becomes an unstoppable force that reshapes the landscape of possibility. What makes persistence so rare? It demands that you continue acting in the absence of immediate reward, a requirement that contradicts our neurological wiring for instant gratification. In a world of quick fixes and overnight sensations, the discipline to persist through the valley of disappointment, that gap between expectation and visible results, separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. To cultivate this quality, begin by understanding that discomfort is the currency of achievement. Train yourself to recognize the urge to quit as a signal that you're approaching a breakthrough, not a breakdown. Start with small commitments. Finishing workouts when your body screams to stop, completing projects when motivation wanes, making one more sales call after rejection. These seemingly minor victories rewire your brain to associate persistence with eventual success. Develop what psychologists call grit, the intersection of passion and perseverance. This isn't stubbornness for its own sake, but a deep-seated conviction that your destination is worth the journey, regardless of how arduous. Gritty individuals don't need constant external validation because they're driven by internal standards that transcend temporary setback. Look at the Wright brothers, two bicycle mechanics who refused to accept the limits of earthbound humanity. With no formal engineering training and limited financial resources, they competed against better funded, better educated teams in the race for manned flight. What they possessed was methodical persistence. Each failed test flight became data for the next attempt. While others abandoned their aviation pursuits after setbacks, the Wrights returned to their workshop, refined their designs, and tried again. Their eventual success wasn't miraculous, it was mathematical, the inevitable result of persistent iteration. The most dangerous moment in any worthwhile pursuit isn't at the beginning when enthusiasm is high, nor at the breakthrough point when success is imminent. It's in the middle, when progress slows, doubts multiply, and the initial excitement has long faded. This is where persistence proves its worth. The ability to continue executing with excellence when results aren't yet visible is what separates those who succeed eventually from those who might have succeeded if only they had continued. But are you willing to outlast your obstacles, or will you let temporary defeat become permanent failure? This question isn't rhetorical, it's predictive. Your answer determines not just what you'll achieve, but who you'll become. Persistence doesn't just change your circumstances, it transforms your character. It converts wishful thinkers into achievers, dreamers into creators, and individuals of potential into people of impact. Remember, persistence isn't about never falling, it's about rising every time you fall. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about refusing to accept it as final. And it's not about being fearless, it's about continuing despite your fear, translating momentary courage into lasting achievement. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Where your mind goes, your life follows. Think negative, expect defeat, and sure enough, you stumble. But focus your mind on opportunity, possibility, greatness, and life bends to your expectation. Why does it work this way? Because your mind sets your internal thermostat, and you cannot perform consistently above the way you see yourself. So how do you tune your mind? Daily affirmations, gratitude, visualization, and most importantly, guarding against the weeds of fear and cynicism. Your thoughts are not passive observers of your life. They are active creators of it. Every achievement, every failure, every breakthrough, and every setback begins in the same place, the landscape of your thinking. This isn't metaphysical wishfulness, but psychological reality. The images you consistently hold in your mind become the blueprint from which your life is built, not because of magical thinking, but because your thoughts direct your actions, shape your decisions, and determine what you notice in your environment. The mind operates like a sophisticated filtering system. At any moment, millions of bits of information surround you, but you consciously process only a tiny fraction. What determines which information reaches your awareness? Your dominant thought patterns. If you're fixated on obstacles, you'll spot every potential problem. If you're attuned to opportunities, you'll notice possibilities others miss entirely. Same world, different experience. Determined not by external circumstances, but by internal focus. This principle extends beyond mere perception into performance. Psychologists call it the self-fulfilling prophecy, the phenomenon where expectations influence behavior in ways that make those expectations come true. Athletes who visualize successful performance activate the same neural pathways as physical practice. Executives who imagine confident presentations actually deliver them more effectively. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish sharply between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. Both shape your capabilities and responses. How do you harness this immense power? Begin by auditing your thoughts with the same diligence you'd review financial accounts. What recurring patterns dominate your inner dialogue? What storylines do you habitually rehearse? These are not idle musings, but the architects of your destiny. Once aware of them, you can deliberately reshape them through consistent mental practices. Start with daily affirmations, not as hollow chants, but as declarations of identity that challenge limiting beliefs. I am becoming a master of my craft. I handle challenges with creativity and resilience. I create value in every interaction. Speak these truths not as distant hopes, but as emerging realities. And your subconscious mind begins accepting them as instructions rather than aspirations. Pair affirmations with gratitude, the practice of deliberately focusing on what's working rather than what's lacking. This isn't about denying problems, but about providing balanced perspective. Gratitude retrains your attention system to notice assets and advantages typically overlooked when problem-forming thinking dominates. Visualization completes this mental training trinity. Spend time daily seeing yourself performing at your highest level, handling challenges with grace, and embodying your aspirations. Make these mental rehearsals detailed, engaging, all senses. Feel the emotions of accomplishment, hear the sounds of success, See the vivid details of your desired outcomes. Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." His insight wasn't just motivational rhetoric, but a recognition of how thinking shapes capability. When Ford envisioned production methods that industrial experts deemed impossible, he wasn't being unrealistic. He was refusing to accept inherited limitations that existed only in the mind. His thinking created the conditions for breakthrough innovation that transformed an industry. Most crucial is what you defend your mind against. Thoughts, like gardens, require both cultivation and protection. Guard vigorously against chronic fear, cynicism, and the toxic influences that would plant these seeds in your mental landscape. Be selective about what information you consume, what conversations you entertain, and whose opinions you value. Your mind is too powerful a tool to surrender to random programming. What kind of steering wheel are you gripping right now? One aimed at success or one pointed at mediocrity? The trajectory of your life will answer this question with perfect accuracy. Your future isn't determined by circumstances, but by the persistent direction of your thought. Aim them deliberately toward greatness and watch as your life gradually, inevitably follows. Action is the cure for fear. Fear grows in the soil of hesitation. Every second you wait, the monster of what if grows larger in your mind. But action, even small, imperfect action, slays fear. Why? Because motion creates confidence, and confidence crushes doubt. How do you start? Set a ridiculously small action. One call, one conversation, one page, and do it immediately. Action signals to your mind, "I am moving forward," and fear begins to shrink. The paradox of fear is that it appears most overwhelming when viewed from a distance. Standing at the edge of your comfort zone, peering into the unknown, your imagination conjures threats far more terrifying than reality. This psychological phenomenon, catastrophizing, transforms manageable challenges into insurmountable obstacles. But something remarkable happens when you step forward. The imagined monsters shrink into manageable problems. This is because fear thrives in abstraction, but withers in specificity. When contemplating a difficult conversation, your mind envisions rejection, conflict, and humiliation. But once engaged in the actual discussion, your attention shifts from these catastrophic fantasies to the immediate task of listening, responding, and problem solving. The feared future dissolves as you inhabit the present moment of action. Neurologically, action disrupts the fear cycle by redirecting neural activity from the amygdala, your brain's alarm system, to the prefrontal cortex, which handles problem solving and rational thought. This physiological shift explains why the sensation of fear literally diminishes once you begin taking steps forward. You cannot simultaneously occupy the mental space of fearful anticipation and focused action. Fear loses its grip when you shrink the commitment to something so small that resistance cannot reasonably object. Don't write a book, write one paragraph. Don't transform your entire business. Improve one element of one process. Don't have the entire difficult conversation. Simply schedule it. These micro-exections create a phenomenon called the progress principle. The discovery that the sense of forward momentum, even in tiny increments, generates disproportionately positive emotional and motivational effects. Each small victory builds not just progress, but psychological capital, the confidence to tackle slightly larger challenges next time. Most importantly, action breaks the paralysis of perfectionism. The pursuit of flawless execution keeps countless dreams permanently suspended in planning stages. But success doesn't demand perfection. It demands iteration. Each imperfect action provides feedback that guides your next attempt. This cycle of action, feedback, and adjustment creates rapid growth that perfectionism prevents. Think about the first flight of the Wright brothers. It was clumsy, short, but history-making. By modern standards, it was barely a flight at all. Yet, this seemingly modest achievement broke the psychological barrier that had kept humans earthbound throughout history. The brothers didn't wait until they could cross continents. They simply proved human flight was possible. Each subsequent flight built on the knowledge gained from that first imperfect attempt. The pattern appears throughout history. Great achievements begin with imperfect action. The first telephone call was barely audible. The first light bulb burned for just hours. The first computer filled an entire room to perform calculations a modern watch handles instantly. Yet each of these imperfect beginnings unleashed revolutions. What small action could you take today to make fear irrelevant? This question isn't about grand gestures, but about breaking inertia. Identify one step so small that it feels almost insignificant, then take it immediately. Send the email, make the call, write the first paragraph, schedule the meeting, purchase the domain name, register for the class. The specific action matters less than the psychological boundary it breaks. Remember that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in its presence. You don't need to feel confident to begin. You need to begin to feel confident. Let action be your antidote to anxiety, your response to reluctance, your answer to ambivalence. In a world paralyzed by overthinking, the simple decision to move forward, however imperfectly, already places you ahead of most. Embrace the growth mindset. Fixed mindsets believe I am who I am, but growth mindsets believe I can become. If you think your abilities are carved in stone, you'll never push past your comfort zone. But if you know that every day you can learn, adapt, evolve, you unleash unlimited potential. Why does this matter? Because without a growth mindset, obstacles feel final. With one, they become stepping stones. How do you build it? Celebrate effort, seek challenges, learn from criticism. The distinction between these two mindsets, identified by Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck, represents perhaps the most fundamental choice you'll make about your own development. Those with fixed mindsets view intelligence, talent, and character as static traits, like height or eye color. Qualities to be measured, not developed. Every challenge becomes a test of these fixed attributes. Every setback a painful revelation of permanent limitations. Those with growth mindsets, however, see these same qualities as muscles that strengthen with use. Intelligence expands through learning. Talent deepens through practice. Character develops through experience. This perspective transforms the meaning of effort and difficulty. Struggle isn't evidence of inadequacy, but the essential process of growth, just as resistance is necessary to build physical strength. The implications reach far beyond abstract psychology. Research shows that mindset predicts achievement across domains, from academics to athletics, from professional success to personal relationships. Children with growth mindsets outperform those with equal abilities but fixed perspectives. Businesses led by growth-oriented executives adapt more successfully to changing markets. Relationships flourish when partners believe people can change and develop. What makes mindset so powerful? It shapes your response to the inevitable challenges of meaningful pursuit. The growth mindset generates the opposite reactions, embracing challenges as opportunities, persisting through setbacks, seeking constructive criticism, finding inspiration in others' achievements. These responses transform obstacles from endpoints into launch pads, converting potential failure into accelerated development. So how do you cultivate this transformative perspective? Start by recognizing that your brain is designed for growth, neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to form new connections throughout life means that learning isn't just acquiring information, but physically restructuring your neural pathways. Every time you push beyond comfortable mastery, your brain literally rewires itself to accommodate new capabilities. Next, redefine success as progress rather than perfection. Celebrate effort, strategy, and improvement instead of innate ability. When you accomplish something, ask, how did I develop to achieve this, rather than what does this say about my fixed talent? When you fail, ask, what can I learn, instead of what does this prove about my limitations? Seek challenges deliberately, knowing that comfort is the enemy of growth. The brain, like muscle, develops only when pushed beyond its current capacity. Embrace the productive discomfort of attempting what you cannot yet do well. Are you judging yourself by your failures or your willingness to learn? This question reveals whether you're operating from a fixed or growth mindset. Those with fixed mindsets see failure as identity. I am a failure. Those with growth mindsets see failure as event. That attempt failed, and here's what I learned. The world increasingly rewards adaptability over static expertise. Industries transform, technologies evolve, and problems change faster than ever before. In this environment, the capacity to learn continuously and pivot repeatedly becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. Those who believe they can become will inevitably outpace those who believe they simply are. Your potential isn't predetermined by genetics, education, or circumstances. It's continuously shaped by your willingness to embrace challenges, persist through obstacles, learn from criticism, and find lessons in others' success. The growth mindset isn't just an attitude. It's the gateway to becoming the person you're capable of being. Gainman shapes destiny. Your life is not merely the product of your thoughts, but of the invisible currents that surround you daily. The environments you inhabit, physical, social, and digital, silently mold your ambitions, beliefs, and ultimately your destiny. Consider this truth. You become the environment you allow. This isn't motivational fluff, it's psychological reality. Your subconscious mind, that powerful force driving 95% of your decisions, ceaselessly absorbs the dominant energies, conversations, and expectations surrounding you. When you spend significant time with negative, small-minded people, their limitations inevitably become yours. Their fears transmit like a virus. Their constraints on what's possible narrow your vision. Not because you consciously accept their limitations, but because repeated exposure normalizes mediocrity. Your extraordinary dreams begin to feel unreasonable rather than inevitable. Conversely, when you surround yourself with big thinkers, dreamers, and builders, your mind expands to accommodate grander possibilities. Their ambitions recalibrate your sense of what's achievable. Their momentum carries you forward. Their standards elevate yours. This phenomenon explains why certain environments produce clusters of excellence. Silicon Valley doesn't create visionaries by accident. Renaissance Florence didn't randomly birth artistic genius. These environments crystallized success because excellence became the baseline expectation, mediocrity the unacceptable anomaly. Henry Ford, before revolutionizing transportation, he deliberately cultivated a relationship with Thomas Edison. This environmental influence transformed Ford from a curious mechanic to an industrial visionary. The mechanism behind this transformation is neurological. Your brain contains mirror neurons that unconsciously absorb and replicate the behaviors, attitudes, and energy patterns surrounding you. You're constantly being programmed by your environment, whether you recognize it or not. Your environment doesn't just influence your thoughts, it determines your default settings. In an environment where excellence is expected, excellence becomes your baseline. Where mediocrity is tolerated, mediocrity becomes comfortable. The question becomes, are you deliberately designing your environment or passively inheriting it? Most people do the latter, then wonder why their lives feel constrained. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires courage. Curate your environment intentionally. Audit your 5 closest relationships. Do they expand or contract your sense of possibility? Examine your media diet. Does it nourish ambition or feed complacency? Assess your physical spaces. Do they energize or deplete you? Sometimes the most powerful growth strategy isn't changing yourself, but changing your surroundings. Feel beyond your caliber. Remember, your environment isn't neutral. It's either lifting you toward your potential or pulling you away from it. There is no static position. So ask yourself, who are you allowing to shape your future? What standards surround you daily? Which conversations dominate your mental landscape? Are these influences worthy of the person you're capable of becoming? Your destiny isn't determined by occasional moments of motivation, but by the invisible currents you swim in daily. Choose those currents wisely, for they will inevitably carry you toward the shores they're designed to reach. Failure is a teacher, not a tombstone. Failure isn't your final destination unless you choose to stop walking. Most people see failure as a signal to quit, but it's really an invitation to grow. The path to mastery isn't a straight line, but a series of instructive detours that shape your journey. Consider this truth. Every setback contains precisely the lesson you need to advance. This isn't motivational rhetoric. It's the fundamental pattern of achievement. Your response to failure, not the failure itself. determines your ultimate trajectory. When you interpret failure as permanent defeat, you forfeit the very wisdom that would propel you forward. The terrain of your potential remains unexplored, not because you lacked ability, but because you misinterpreted the signposts along the way. Conversely, when you approach failure as education, as valuable feedback rather than final judgment, each setback becomes a critical component of your eventual success. Your resilience grows not despite challenges, but because of them. Your capabilities expand not from avoiding difficulty, but from navigating through it. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals achieve extraordinary outcomes despite ordinary beginnings. Excellence doesn't emerge from perfect conditions, but from the persistent extraction of wisdom from imperfect attempts. Marie Curie. Before revolutionizing physics and chemistry, she faced profound obstacles. Born in Russian-occupied Poland, denied higher education opportunities as a woman, and working in primitive laboratory conditions, Curie transformed these limitations into catalyst for innovation. Her initial experiments failed repeatedly, yet she meticulously documented each unsuccessful approach, extracting critical insights that eventually led to the discovery of radioactivity. This relationship with failure transformed Curie from a struggling student to a two-time Nobel Prize winner, the only person to win in multiple scientific fields. The mechanism behind this transformation is neurological. Your brain literally rewires itself through the challenging process of recognizing errors, adapting strategies, and implementing new approaches. You're not just recovering from failure, you're evolving through it. This truth extends beyond individual achievement to innovation itself. The technologies and breakthroughs we now take for granted emerged from countless failed experiments, each one providing crucial data that refined the next attempt. Your relationship with failure doesn't just influence your outcomes, it determines your capacity for growth. In environments where failure is stigmatized, innovation stagnates. Where failure is recognized as educational, possibilities expand exponentially. The question becomes, are you treating your setbacks as tombstones or textbooks? Most people do the former, then wonder why their progress feels perpetually blocked. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires courage. Normalize failure as essential education. After every setback, ask yourself, what did I miss? How can I improve? What does this teach me that success couldn't? Document your insights, refine your approach, and advance with greater wisdom. Sometimes the most powerful growth strategy isn't avoiding failure, but engaging with it more intelligently. This might mean difficult adjustments, releasing your attachment to perfect outcomes, embracing vulnerability, or developing a more sophisticated relationship with criticism and feedback. Remember, failure isn't a judgment of your worth, but a necessary component of your development. There is no meaningful achievement without it. So ask yourself, are you extracting the full measure of wisdom from your setbacks? Are you embracing failure as a rigorous teacher? Is your fear of imperfection preventing the very progress you seek? Your destiny isn't determined by occasional successes, but by your persistent ability to transform obstacles into insights. Master this skill, and you transform the very concept of failure from an ending. Believe bigger than your circumstances. Your present reality is not your permanent identity, yet many live chained by what they can see, touch, and measure. But belief operates on a higher law. It creates before it sees. The boundaries of your life aren't determined by current conditions, but by the expansiveness of your vision. Consider this truth. Circumstances are temporary, but beliefs become architectural blueprints for your future. This isn't motivational fantasy. It's the hidden mechanism behind every transformation. Your capacity to envision possibilities beyond your present reality determines the height of your eventual rise. When you allow your visible circumstances to constrain your invisible dreams, you unconsciously accept limitation as your natural state. The prison of practical thinking ensures you never stretch beyond survival mode, never reaching the heights your potential could achieve. Conversely, when you believe bigger than what surrounds you, when your inner vision transcends your outer reality, you activate forces that gradually reshape your circumstances. Your determination grows not from favorable conditions, but from unshakable conviction. Your path materializes not because it was clearly marked, but because you refuse to accept its absence. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals break free from seemingly predestined paths. Extraordinary achievements don't emerge from extraordinary circumstances, but from extraordinary belief maintained despite ordinary or even hostile conditions. Malcolm X. Before becoming a pivotal civil rights leader in the 1960s, he faced overwhelming obstacles. Born into racial hostility, losing his father to violence at 6, watching his mother institutionalized and drifting into crime that led to prison, his circumstances suggested no path to significance. Yet in prison, Malcolm developed an unshakable belief in his capacity for transformation and leadership. Reading voraciously and mastering public speaking, he cultivated an inner vision that contradicted every external reality. This capacity to believe beyond his circumstances transformed Malcolm from prisoner to international human rights advocate whose influence continues decades after his death. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends mere positive thinking. When you maintain belief beyond your circumstances, you literally perceive opportunities invisible to those constrained by realistic expectations. You recognize pathways others miss, not because you're naturally more perceptive, but because your expanded vision allows you to see beyond conventional limitations. This principle extends beyond individual achievement to social transformation itself. Every significant movement, invention, or cultural shift began as belief that contradicted accepted reality. The rights movements of the 1960s were built by people who refused to believe their present circumstances represented their permanent identity. Your relationship with belief doesn't just influence your outcomes, it determines your capacity for growth. In environments where vision is limited to the visible, stagnation becomes inevitable. Where belief extends beyond circumstances, previously impossible paths emerge. The question becomes, are you living according to your surroundings or your soaring vision? Most people do the former, then wonder why their lives feel predestined rather than purposeful. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires discipline. Deliberately expand your imagination daily. Read histories of people who transcended circumstances similar to yours. Visualize success with the same clarity with which others see struggle. Speak words aligned with your destination, not your current location. Sometimes the most powerful transformation begins not with changing your environment, but with changing what you believe is possible within it. This might require uncomfortable adjustments, rejecting pessimism disguised as realism, standing firm when others question your vision, or maintaining faith when evidence seems lacking. Remember, circumstances are teachers, not masters. There is no predestined outcome that belief cannot eventually overcome. So ask yourself, are your dreams limited by what surrounds you? Is your sense of possibility constrained by current conditions? Are you accepting today's reality as tomorrow's ceiling? Your destiny isn't determined by today's circumstances, but by your persistent ability to believe beyond them. Master this skill, and you transform the very concept of limitation from a barrier into a beginning point. Speak your future into existence. Words are seeds. Every sentence you speak about your life plants something in your future. Speak negativity and you grow weeds. Speak faith and you grow orchards. The declarations emerging from your mouth aren't simply descriptions of reality. They're architects of possibility. Consider this truth. Language shapes reality before reality shapes language. This isn't mystical thinking, it's psychological architecture. Your subconscious mind can't distinguish between what you repeatedly articulate and what exists. It simply builds toward whatever blueprint your words provide. When you habitually verbalize limitation, doubt, or inadequacy, you're not merely describing your current state, you're actively constructing barriers to your advancement. The narrative becomes circular. You speak of impossibility, which reinforces perception of impossibility, which manifests as experienced impossibility. Conversely, when you deliberately speak of strength, capacity, and eventual victory, especially when evidence seems lacking, you create cognitive pathways that facilitate precisely those outcomes. Your resilience strengthens, not because circumstances improve, but because your internal dialogue demands it. Your capabilities expand not because tasks become easier, but because your verbal commitment refuses any other. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals seem to manifest extraordinary outcomes through sheer force of declaration. Remarkable achievement doesn't originate from superior circumstances, but from superior self-communication maintained regardless of circumstance. Maya Angelou. Before becoming one of America's most influential voices, she endured trauma that rendered her mute for nearly 5 years. Yet even after regaining speech, she chose her words with deliberate, almost sacred intention. Words are things, she often said. They get on the walls, they get in your wallpaper, they get in your rugs, in your upholstery, in your clothes, and finally into you. This relationship with language transformed Angelou from a traumatized girl into a voice that would reshape literature and inspire generations. Her powerful declarations about dignity, strength, and possibility preceded her accomplishments. They didn't merely follow them. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends psychological effect. When you consistently articulate ambitious futures, you literally reconfigure your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information. You suddenly notice opportunities aligned with your declarations that were always present, but previously invisible to your linguistically limited perception. This principle extends beyond individual achievement to leadership itself. Every meaningful movement began with someone who dared speak of possibilities others couldn't yet perceive. Great leaders don't simply manage what exists. They articulate what could be with such conviction. Your relationship with language doesn't just reflect your reality, it determines your capacity to transform it. In environments where speech patterns default to limitation, growth becomes inhibited. Where declaration pushes beyond current evidence, previously unseen pathways emerge. The question becomes, what future are you speaking into existence? Most people default to describing current conditions, then wonder why tomorrow resembles yesterday. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires discipline. Develop conscious command over your verbal universe. Speak affirmations daily, loudly, proudly, as if the universe itself is taking notes. Eliminate phrases that contradict your destination. Replace "I'll try" with "I will." Substitute "I hope" with "I know." Sometimes the most powerful catalyst for transformation isn't changing your circumstances, but changing the language you use to interpret and project them. This requires uncomfortable adjustments. Speaking with certainty when evidence seems lacking, maintaining positive declaration when challenges multiply, or articulating victory while still in the battlefield. Remember, words aren't passive observers of your journey, but active participants in creating it. There is no future achievement that wasn't first articulated as present possibility. So ask yourself, what sentences are you scripting into your tomorrow? Is your language limiting your horizons or expanding them? Are your words worthy of the future you're capable of creating? Your destiny emerges not just from occasional inspired action, but from the persistent linguistics of possibility you plant daily. Master your declarations, and you master the direction of your life. Commit to life. Long learning education is not a season. It's a lifetime commitment. Many stop learning once school ends, but real leaders stay forever curious. The distinction between those who achieve lasting impact and those who peak early often comes down to a simple choice: whether knowledge acquisition ends with formal education or continues as a deliberate daily practice. Your knowledge has an expiration date. This isn't pessimistic, it's pragmatic reality. The information that positioned you for success yesterday becomes increasingly insufficient with each passing year. The world accelerates forward while static minds fall invisibly behind. When you treat education as a completed chapter rather than an ongoing narrative, you unknowingly begin the process of professional fossilization. Your relevance diminishes not because you lack ability, but because you've stopped refreshing your intellectual inventory. Conversely, when you commit to perpetual learning, when you approach each day with deliberate curiosity, you remain perpetually valuable. Your insights deepen, not because opportunities improve, but because your understanding constantly expands. Your contributions evolve not because circumstances demand less, but because your knowledge compels more. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals maintain ascending trajectories long after others plateau. Sustained excellence doesn't emerge from talent alone, but from the relentless acquisition and application of new knowledge. Leonardo da Vinci. Before becoming the quintessential Renaissance man, he established learning as his fundamental identity. With no formal education beyond basic reading and arithmetic, he developed expertise across anatomy, engineering, botany, geology, and numerous other disciplines. He filled thousands of notebook pages with observations, questions, and experimental results. This commitment to learning transformed Da Vinci from a modest beginning into history's definitive polymath, whose work still informs multiple fields centuries later. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends mere information collection. When you engage in consistent learning, you literally develop increased neuroplasticity. Your brain becomes more adaptable, forming new connections that enhance your capacity to recognize patterns, solve problems, and generate innovative solutions. This principle extends beyond individual achievement to organizational leadership itself. The most significant companies maintain vibrant learning cultures that prioritize curiosity over complacency. Great leaders don't simply leverage what they know. They model growth by constantly expanding what they understand. Your relationship with learning doesn't just influence your knowledge base, it determines your capacity for adaptation. In environments where intellectual complacency prevails, obsolescence becomes inevitable. Where learning persists as priority, relevance endures, regardless of external change. The question becomes, are you treating education as a diploma to hang or a sword to sharpen? Most people do the former, then wonder why their professional edge gradually dulls. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires discipline. Establish daily learning rituals. Read books that challenge rather than confirm your thinking. Seek mentors whose knowledge exceeds yours in specific domains. Maintain curiosity even when exhausted by demands. Question assumptions that others accept without examination. Sometimes the most powerful career strategy isn't pursuing new opportunities, but developing new capabilities within existing ones. This might require uncomfortable adjustments, acknowledging knowledge gaps, embracing beginner status in new domains, or cultivating humility when expertise feels threatened. Remember, learning isn't about accumulating credentials, but about expanding capacity. There is no sustainable success without the continual refinement of understanding. So ask yourself, has your education become a historical artifact or an ongoing adventure? Is your knowledge expanding or contracting? Are you investing in your intellectual future with the same urgency you give to other priorities? Your destiny emerges not just from what you've already learned, but from your persistent commitment to exploring what remains unknown. Master the discipline of lifelong learning, and you transform the very concept of education from a completed achievement into an infinite advantage. See opportunity where others see obstacles. Problems are not punishments, they are portals. But many stare at walls, forgetting that hidden doors exist. The distinction between extraordinary achievers and the perpetually frustrated isn't intelligence or resources, it's perception. One sees barriers while the other discovers bridges in the same circumstances. Obstacles reveal opportunities invisible during smooth sailing. This isn't motivational rhetoric, it's entrepreneurial reality. The friction points that frustrate most people contain precisely the insights needed for breakthrough innovation. The problems that appear to block progress actually illuminate the path forward. When you fixate on the pain of problems rather than their potential, you unconsciously surrender to limitation. Your creativity narrows not because solutions are absent, but because your perspective prevents their discovery. The obstacle becomes your identity rather than your invitation. Conversely, when you deliberately reframe obstacles as opportunities, when you approach problems with genuine curiosity rather than frustration, you activate resourcefulness that remains dormant in most. Your resilience strengthens not because challenges diminish, but because your relationship with them transforms. Your innovations emerge not despite difficulties, but because of them. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals and organizations turn market disruptions into competitive advantages. Remarkable success often emerges not from ideal conditions, but from the creative response to seemingly insurmountable problems. Andrew Carnegie. Before becoming one of history's wealthiest industrialists, he faced extraordinary obstacles. Born into poverty in Scotland, immigrating to America at 13, working factory jobs for pennies a day, and entering the steel industry with minimal formal education, Carnegie didn't simply overcome these barriers, he leveraged them. His humble beginnings instilled financial discipline that informed his business decisions. His outsider status freed him to question established industry practices. His early factory work gave him ground-level insights into operational efficiency that privileged executives lacked. This transformative relationship with obstacles converted Carnegie from penniless immigrant to revolutionary industrialist who fundamentally altered American manufacturing while building a fortune worth over $300 billion, 0 cents, in today's currency. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends mere persistence. When you habitually seek opportunity within obstacles, you literally rewire your brain's threat detection system. What others perceive as danger signals, you process as data points, valuable information guiding your next innovation. This principle extends beyond individual achievement to market leadership itself. The most disruptive companies don't simply solve existing problems. They recognize opportunities within challenges that others dismiss as unsolvable. Great innovators don't avoid difficulty. They mine it for insights that reveal untapped markets. Your relationship with obstacles doesn't just influence your success rate, it determines your capacity for innovation. In environments where problems trigger complaint, progress stagnates. Where obstacles catalyze curiosity, breakthrough becomes inevitable. The question becomes, when adversity knocks, do you complain or do you explore? Most people do the former, then wonder why solutions remain elusive. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires discipline. Systematically train your mind toward opportunity-focused thinking. When problems emerge, immediately ask, where's the opportunity inside this obstacle? What's the advantage hidden within this apparent setback? How might this challenge reveal something that prosperity would conceal? Sometimes the most valuable asset isn't the absence of problems, but a transformative relationship with them. This might require uncomfortable adjustments, embracing uncertainty, questioning assumed limitations, or finding advantage where others see only disadvantage. Remember, obstacles aren't designed to block your path, but to create new ones. There is no significant achievement without the creative navigation of substantial challenges. So ask yourself, are you treating problems as punishment or portals? Do difficulties diminish your resolve or ignite your creativity? Are the very obstacles you currently face containing opportunities invisible to others? Your destiny emerges not from how many obstacles you encounter, but from your capacity to extract opportunity from each one. Master this skill, and you transform the very concept of problems from barriers into building materials. Surround yourself with builders, not breakers. Your circle is your silent architect. Builders challenge, encourage, and elevate you. Breakers criticize, drain, and diminish you. The company you keep isn't just social choice. It's strategic infrastructure that either constructs or collapses your future. Proximity is power. This isn't sentimental, it's neurological reality. The human brain instinctively calibrates to the dominant frequencies surrounding it. Your ambitions, beliefs, and actions unconsciously align with your 5 closest associates, regardless of your conscious intentions. When you tolerate breakers in your inner circle, those who reflexively criticize, dismiss dreams as impractical, or feed on negativity, you unknowingly install a ceiling on your potential. Your vision contracts not because you lack capacity, but because your environment constantly reinforces limitation. Your boldest ideas die before they breathe because the soil around you is toxic to growth. Conversely, when you deliberately cultivate relationships with builders, those who think expansively, speak possibility, and transform challenges into opportunities, you create an ecosystem where excellence becomes inevitable. Your courage amplifies not because risks diminish, but because support strengthens. Your creativity flourishes not because ideas come easier, but because they land in fertile ground. This phenomenon explains why certain environments produce clusters of extraordinary achievement. Breakthrough innovation rarely emerges from isolation, but from the dynamic interaction of minds united by constructive purpose. J.P. Morgan. Before becoming America's most influential financier, he recognized that relationships determine destiny. In the late 1800s, while others fought cutthroat battles, Morgan built strategic alliances with forward-thinking industrialists. He created informal builders' circles where America's brightest minds, Edison, Westinghouse, Tesla, could share visions and solve problems collectively. This deliberate cultivation of high-caliber connections transformed Morgan from a competitive banker to an architect of American industry whose investments electrified cities, built railroads, and modernized manufacturing. His power wasn't just financial capital, but relationship capital, the capacity to unite builders toward common purpose. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends mere networking. When surrounded by builders, you literally access collective intelligence unavailable to isolated minds. Problems that would stall a single person dissolve under the diverse perspectives of solution-oriented thinkers. This principle extends beyond individual success to organizational culture itself. The most innovative companies don't simply hire talented individuals. They engineer environments where builders thrive while breakers find themselves incompatible. Great leaders don't just direct tasks. They curate connections that catalyze collaborative possibility. Your relationship ecosystem doesn't just influence your opportunities, it determines your standard of thinking. In environments dominated by breakers, mediocrity feels ambitious. Where builders congregate, extraordinary becomes the baseline expectation. The question becomes, are you sitting at a table full of builders or breakers? Most people accept circles by convenience rather than designing them by intention, then wonder why their dreams remain perpetually deferred. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires courage. Audit your relationships ruthlessly. Identify the builders, those whose words energize rather than deplete, whose eyes light up discussing possibility, who talk ideas rather than gossip. Invest disproportionately in these connections. Simultaneously recognize the breakers, those perpetually focusing on problems without solutions, limitations without alternatives, fears without faith. Create appropriate distance without unnecessary drama. Sometimes the most vital growth strategy isn't developing new skills, but developing new relationships. This might require uncomfortable adjustments, leaving familiar circles that feel safe but stifle growth, joining environments where you're temporarily the least accomplished person, or standing firm when breakers attempt to pull you back to their level. Remember, association isn't just about who you like, it's about who you're becoming. There is no personal transformation without environmental transformation. So ask yourself, who occupies your daily orbit? Do your closest relationships represent your desired direction or your comfortable past? Are you building a circle worthy of your potential? Your destiny emerges not from occasional inspiration, but from the consistent influence of those you allow nearest your dreams. Choose wisely, for they silently shape tomorrow's version of you. Success leaves clues. Study them. Excellence isn't a mystery, it's a pattern. The successful leave trails if you're wise enough to study their footprints. Achievement at the highest levels isn't random chance or unreachable talent. It's decipherable code, waiting for the dedicated student to unlock. History repeats its lessons for those attentive enough to recognize them. This isn't philosophical, it's practical wisdom. The principles that elevated exceptional performers across generations remain remarkably consistent, hidden in plain sight for those disciplined enough to study rather than simply spectate. When you admire success without analyzing it, celebrating outcomes without investigating processes, you sentence yourself to unnecessary trial and error. Your progress slows not because wisdom is unavailable, but because you failed to extract it from readily accessible examples. You reinvent wheels that others have already perfected. Conversely, when you deliberately study success patterns, when you approach achievement as an investigator rather than a fan, you compress decades of learning into months. Your growth accelerates not because you possess unusual talent, but because you leverage the distilled experience of those who preceded you. Your decisions improve not because circumstances favor you, but because your mental models have been refined by observed excellence. This phenomenon explains why certain individuals advance rapidly while others remain locked in perpetual beginning. Extraordinary progress doesn't emerge from isolated effort, but from the strategic application of principles others have already validated. Walt Disney. Before revolutionizing entertainment, he developed an obsession with studying success across diverse industries. He analyzed department store layouts to understand customer flow before designing Disneyland. He studied manufacturing processes at industrial plants to improve animation production efficiency. He extracted principles from architecture, urban planning, and theater to create immersive storytelling environments. This systematic study of success patterns transformed Disney from struggling cartoonist to visionary founder whose methods still guide entertainment innovation decades after his death. The mechanism behind this transformation transcends mere imitation. When you analyze success across multiple domains, you literally develop pattern recognition capabilities that reveal underlying principles invisible to casual observers. What others perceive as separate achievements, you recognize as variations of universal laws. This principle extends beyond individual advancement to organizational development itself. The most innovative companies don't simply generate novel ideas. They systematically study excellence across industries, extracting adaptable principles. Great leaders don't just drive performance, they cultivate organizational learning that accelerates collective progress. Your relationship with existing success models doesn't just influence your efficiency, it determines your capacity for innovation. In environments where reinvention is prioritized over study, progress remains unnecessarily slow. Where careful analysis precedes action, advancement accelerates exponentially. The question becomes, are you idly admiring greatness from a distance or actively decoding its secrets? Most people do the former, then wonder why their progress feels perpetually insufficient. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires discipline. Develop systematic study habits. Read biographies of exceptional performers in your field and adjacent ones. Analyze decision points rather than just outcomes. Extract principles rather than copying tactics. Identify patterns across seemingly unrelated success stories. Sometimes the most powerful growth strategy isn't increasing effort, but increasing effective study. This might require uncomfortable adjustments, acknowledging that others have solved problems you're still struggling with. Suspending ego. Decide, then burn the ships. Half commitments are chains. Full decisions are wings. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who merely dream lies not in talent or circumstance, but in the absoluteness of their decision. When you leave yourself an escape route, fear will always find it. It whispers reasons to retreat whenever challenges arise. This is why burning the ships isn't just dramatic symbolism, it's essential strategy. The moment you eliminate the possibility of retreat, your mind stops wasting energy on exit plans and redirects that power toward solving problems and pushing forward. Success demands a no-turning-back mindset. Consider how different your approach becomes when failure simply isn't an option. Obstacles transform from reasons to quit into puzzles that must be solved. The question shifts from should I continue to how will I succeed? This psychological transformation unlocks creativity and persistence you never knew you possessed. How do you truly commit? First, declare your dream publicly. When others know your intentions, accountability follows. The social cost of abandonment becomes real. Your word becomes your bond, not just to others, but to yourself. Next, invest financially. Put skin in the game. When your resources are committed, your mind follows. Money spent isn't just currency exchanged, it's a statement of belief. Each dollar invested says, I believe this path leads to something greater. Finally, cut off backup plans. This is perhaps the most difficult step, but also the most powerful. As long as Plan B exists, Plan A never receives your full creative force. The safety net that seems to protect you actually restricts how high you'll climb. History remembers Hernán Cortés because he understood this principle perfectly. Upon reaching the shores of Mexico in 1519, he ordered his men to burn their ships. Conquest became their only option. Retreat was impossible. This decisive action transformed his men from explorers into conquerors. They succeeded because they had to. Consider your own life. Are you truly decided, or are you still hedging your bets with maybe? Does your calendar reflect your priorities, or does it reveal hesitation? Does your bank account show investment in your dreams, or does it fund escape routes? Do your daily actions propel you forward, or do they maintain comfortable alternatives? The moment of decision is not when you say, I want this. It's when you eliminate every other possibility. It's when you burn the ships. Full commitment frightens us because it removes the comfort of optionality. But that discomfort is precisely the point. In that vulnerable space where retreat is impossible, we discover resources within ourselves that comfort never reveals. Today, identify your ships, those backup plans and half commitments, keeping you safely tethered to shore. Then strike the match. Not because success is guaranteed, but because your full commitment is the only thing that makes success possible. The world doesn't reward those who keep their options open. It rewards those who choose one direction and pour their entire being into it. Decide. Then burn the ships, stop doubting yourself, and start believing that anything is possible. Break free from the invisible chains holding you back. Act with certainty, dream with boldness, and pursue your vision with unstoppable faith. The future belongs to those who dare to believe without limits. Step forward today and claim your destiny.